Hello and welcome to the Mitre 10 Cup round. What are we, round three? Is it round three? Only round three. Wow. I'm sure it must be more than that. And the Farah Palmer Cup round, whatever that one's at, review. Yes, it's the Mitre 10 Cup and Farah Palmer Cup review that we bring you every Sunday at 8 p.m. here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Hi, I'm Paul. I'll be your host today. And you know what? We've had some major upsets this weekend. We've had golden points as well to discuss, and we also now have a pretty good idea as to how the women's finals are going to pan out in the Farah Palmer Cup. So lots and lots to talk about, and a change to the usual lineup. I've got Stephen Harris joining me instead. No Ashwin this week, as he's just he had a late night last night, and boy, he's just too old. He just can't cope anymore.
I don't know about that. You replace one old guy with an even older guy, Paul. I'm not so sure if that's a good thing. But hey, always a privilege to come on and talk the national game, especially these exciting times in the Mitre 10 Cup. Of course, we just surpassed round 4, and we're up to round 5, or coming up to round 6 in the Farah Palmer Cup. So yeah, plenty to get through. A strange old weekend.
There you go. I've named the show wrong, folks. So sorry about that. The title of the video is wrong, but hey, it was a cracking weekend, and we kicked off on Friday night with Bay of Plenty versus Auckland down in Rotorua. Now, besides Southland, I think Rotorua could be one of the coldest stadiums in the Mitre 10 Cup. It's the coldest one that I go to. Anyway, lovely and warm in the sunshine. As soon as that sun drops off, though, boy, the air temperature in Rotorua is pretty nippy. So a cold one there, but dry, which was good. I mean, the coming into this one, you're kind of wondering how these teams will go. In Bay of Plenty, lots of promise, not really clicking this season. Auckland sort of down in a few All Blacks. You're wondering how they're going to, but Auckland, yeah, they seem to be. Seems to be travelling on, but yeah, this was a very cagey affair in the end. Lots of kicking, lots of not wanting to make mistakes and not wanting to lose it. Was kind of how I read this one, Stephen.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit it on the head. Of course, Auckland looked really dangerous, especially one Sayesi Rayasi. Is it Salishi Rayasi out on the wing there, scoring a couple of tries before halftime, and it seemed as though he was probably the most potent guy on the field when you got ball in hand, and in that first half especially, Simon Hickey seemed to be running the cutter really, really well.
Yeah, a bit surprised. I mean, some interesting decision making there. I mean, Bay of Plenty decided to go for the posts when they were straight in front, and you're thinking, wow, you got a penalty in front. Quite often you'll take a scrum at that point, especially if you're 3-10 down. But they didn't. They were accumulating points, and I say that's what. And also with the kicking, that's what made it look like that. And Bay of Plenty yet again getting close. I mean, this time lost this one by 4, but they were bashing away at the line at the end and knocked it on. So Bay of Plenty, I say, just not quite clicking. A lot of their games have been decided by a score one way or the other. And even their win over Southland, Southland could have won that at the death, couldn't they? So, yeah, it's turning into a strange old season for them. And I think there's a few sides like that are taking a few games to get into their stride, taking a few games to get to start clicking as a team. I don't know if that's to do with the whole COVID situation with the shortened pre-season. A lot of these teams didn't have, or might have had like one warm-up game, but not with all of their players. So I think there might be an element of that we're going to see some change. We're going to see some teams who have not been performing that well early will click and will start performing better, I think, as the season goes on.
Yeah, very, very, very true that, Paul. I just thinking that Bay of Plenty performance last year, collectively they were really good as a team, where I thought on Friday night, if I just look at my notes, I thought Nathan Vella really led by example in the number 2 jersey. He created a lot of turnovers, which basically meant that Auckland couldn't really get anything going, even though they looked the more dangerous side. And to be fair, though, Bay of Plenty, they couldn't really take a trick. They didn't seem to utilise their position well and came up with a lot of errors at the wrong time.
Yeah. So that was the only game on Friday. Moving on to Saturday, then we kicked off with Counties versus Manawatu up in Counties. Couldn't make this one because I had because I was in training on Saturday, so I didn't manage to get to that game. But watch this one on the old Sky streaming app. So that was all good. Manawatu really kicked on well in this. Started this game really well, and you're thinking, wow, okay, they've got they've got themselves up and running at last, only to basically just run out of steam, and you kind of think, wow, okay, they really just couldn't hold on to it. We were to me this was kind of like the cup final of the bottom two teams in the championship, and was a must-win game for both of them. And I think we saw that in kind of how Manawatu came out in that first half.
Yeah, I think they went out with a game plan to play it at pace. You could see Jamie Booth popping up all over the place, going for quick taps, just trying to get in behind Counties, and it obviously worked to good effect. They got the early tries to Hurley Langton and, of course, James Tofa in the midfield, who I thought was really outstanding in that first quarter. He was very good. But, for all their endeavour, every now and again, they'd make a mistake and, they'd get punished, and they didn't get... And they were punished by the flanker Motuanga, who ended up scoring 3 tries in the game. So what a way to go for him. He picked up, it's only his second game, and he scored 4 tries. He scored one, I think, the previous week against Northland as well, Paul. So he's having a heck of a season. No question, Manawatu have got points in them. The problem is they leak far too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that second half, it was still they were still up. 15-25. I thought, when they'd replied very quickly to the early penalty in that second half with a try, pretty much straight away, you think, okay, 10-point lead. They seem to be responding to every score that counties score with a score of their own. But then it was one-way traffic after that, there was a try at the death to make it appear a bit closer than it really was. But so Counties really dominated that second half. 3 converted tries without response. That 21 points just took it away. Counties get their first win of the season, which is obviously very pleasing for them.
Paul, I was going to say one of the real key things for me was Baden Kerr actually being replaced early in the second half. Jason Robertson coming on, and I just thought he brought a little bit more spark to the back line. He runs at the back line a little bit more, where Baden Kerr tends to sit back in the pocket, and I thought that was the key. And once they were able to get the ball in the hands of the likes of Kurandrani, he just showed how strong he is, not only pacey but strong, scoring a very good try in the 70th minute, which pretty much sealed the game. Although Manawatu Turbos did come back with that very, very good set piece try near the end to Wild, which I thought was pretty much put together. But all in all, Paul, it made for a grandstand finish, but in my opinion, far too little, far too late.
Yeah, and Kieran Drynes, look, he's a player that came over last year, and I'm thinking, and picked himself up a super contract with the Highlanders with very little gameplay, and so more on promise than anything else. And I've not really seen him deliver, to be honest. He didn't get much game time down in the Highlanders. I wasn't that impressed with him last season, but then again, he didn't have the centres to let him free. I've not been that impressed with him so far this season, but he did take that try well. Shows you that he can do things. He just needs to get involved a lot more.
I don't disagree with that. I think if he's playing with in a team that gets a lot more consistent ball with a bit more space, I think we can see what he can do. He's just not really getting that at the minute. And that's no disrespect to the 2 midfielders that were there, because I actually thought both Forsita and Gus Ledger actually played really, really well. I mean, Gus Ledger is pretty much the heartbeat to that team, Paul. He does most things well, but, as we all know, we need the other 14 guys doing their bit as well.
Yeah, no, the centre combinations looking a lot better than last year. But we had like 21 minutes of no scoring in that game, and then it all came alive. And now Counties have not lost to Manawatu at home since 1981. So
Wow.
there you go. There's a. It's getting on towards 40 years since they lost at home to Manawatu. So yeah, pretty impressive record that the counties were defending.
Wow. I think I was going out with my wife for exactly 1 year, and I hadn't had children. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. That is absolutely insane. Not me not having children. Them not having children.
The officers at school. Anyway, moving on then to, is it nearly 40 years? 9201. Yeah, nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
Moving on then to the next game. Then you were at this one, Northland versus Taranaki, the 50th game between these two. I say I wasn't there, so I'm going to let you. And I didn't get to watch this one, so I'm going to let you take over for this game.
Yeah, of course. Not only was it a victory for Northland, but it was also a celebration of sorts, because Ross Wright played his 100th game, and if you check out our website on New Zealand Sport Radio, I've posted that haka, and I've even got it up on my personal website as well. But also a 50th cap for a couple of other guys, Dan Price, Sam Knock, and Matty Wright, brother of Ross Wright as well. So I think Northland were always going to be fired up for that game. Paul, it took these two teams a little bit of a while to feel each other out, contrary to Lachlan Bosua saying that, oh no, there was no real hangover from the Shield loss last week. I suspect that Taranaki were a little bit flat, and it gave Northland a perfect opportunity to get in there nice and early from a very good break from Sam Knock. And that really was started by Scott Gregory with a little chip over the top. Potros didn't deal with it. It popped up into the hands of Sam Knock, who made a good run, offloaded to Scott Gregory and scored. And a few minutes later, Northland, from a good line-out drive, drove their way over. And, seemingly in control. But one thing Northland were doing very, very well, Paul, they weren't letting Taranaki get over the advantage line. And a lot of the ball was slow. There were a lot of turnovers. It was a little stop-start in that first half. But credit to Taranaki, they scored a try to Daniel Waith just before halftime. On the one occasion they actually did get behind Northland, and that was Lachlan Boshier getting behind Northland. Quick ball to the left-hand side, and they were in for a try. And at 15-7, it was probably Northland that were looking over their shoulder, Paul, at halftime.
And what we're going to do, folks, is we're actually going to end the show playing out with that haka. So do stick around to the end of the show, and we'll play out the show with that video of that haka there for us. I was at Bay of Plenty versus Auckland, as I mentioned, so there are post-match interviews from that one. A funny one, actually, where Kurt Eklund took control of the microphone and the camera and interviewed James Lay. So yes, so that was a bit of a laugh. He wanted to have a go, so I said, "Hey, yeah, here you go, have a go." The Samoan international prop there as to give an idea of sort of the strength that Auckland have coming off the bench. And obviously, Stephen, you had post-match interviews with some of the players after this one as well, that they're also available for on the Facebook page. Yeah,
very, very much so, Paul. That just into that second half, I mean, at some stage, Taranaki did well to come right back into the game. In fact, I think they led 20-18 with 25 minutes to go, and that was courtesy of another try that they scored. Potros, the fullback, who's always dangerous, pretty much walked in a try. And to be honest, the visitors were looking really, really good. But I listened, some really good changes from the Northland coaches. They changed both the front rowers. That brought a little bit of energy into the team. And also off the bench, one Johnny Masalai, who we haven't seen for a while. We've all been asking the question, why has he not been picked in the 23? And interestingly enough, only either his first or second touch, I think it was, he showed his power and strength when he scored in the corner, and that was pretty much the catalyst to wrap the game up, Paul. And then Carter Pryor basically topped it off with a few minutes to go. Taranaki did score near the end, but once again, too little, too late.
I'm a bit surprised that Potros hasn't got Super Rugby chance at some point. He's a very good Mitre 10 Cup player. Another name that picked up a yellow card during this one that's a bit famous is there was a certain Mr. Rush playing.
yes. On debut, son of Robert Rush, who's son of Eric Rush, and yes, and listen, it was really Taranaki just going for broke near the end, and Northland just with continued infringement. So he basically took one for the team, as he told me. So, and his dad as well, who was standing there, not looking too impressed. No. I think I think it was all good. Just one of those things that players do at the end. But I think Northland had really done all the work with their defensive work. And once again, check out our video. I spoke to Lachlan Boucher as well, and yeah, he paid credit to Northland and basically said we just didn't get in behind them. And I think Northland, on the few occasions that they got in behind Taranaki, took their chances, and that was, to me the real difference as well. I know a lot of questions have been asked. Do two players make a difference to a team? For this particular Taranaki team, I think they do, because they just, both Geordie and Bodie, just give you that extra little bit of go forward and X factor as well. One little telling moment was in the game was Taranaki brought Gus Sawakula on, and a very, very good tackle from Tom Robinson, who ended up winning the Northland Player of the Day with a very, very good shot. And you just saw a little bit of a momentum change. Sawakula losing the ball in the tackle. So little things that was key. It was pretty even across the board, relatively even at scrum time. Although Northland, once again, as they showed in the counties game, I think the most pleasing thing for the coaches will be the fact that in 3 of the 4 games, they've actually managed to come back. And good evening, Simon. It's good to have you on board. So, yeah, but look out for all the interviews. I even had one with Graham Dews as well. I know you've got a lot of things to look after when you're an assistant coach of a Mitre 10 Cup team, but I did the interview with one of his children on top of his shoulders as well. And, of course, we catch up with the 100-cap man, Ross Wright, as well, Paul.
And absolutely, look, this is one of the joys of the Mitre 10 Cup, is the fact that it is such a family affair, and that you do see all the fun out there. Moving on then, hi Simon, evening Simon. Good to catch up with you and see you at the Rotorua game as well. You got to say with Taranaki, they've got Auckland, Southland away, Waikato away, so I can see them losing the next 3, but they do have counties and Manawatu, so they've got 2 games there that I think are winnable, but the other ones you got to say are looking pretty tough for them. Next one. Now, all the talk's going to be about the Golden Point, but before we get on to the Golden Point, I want to talk about something else first in this game, and it's something that came up in this game and something that also came up in the Ranfurly Shield game. In this one, we had a head knock early doors to Todd Sanders, okay, and he got left on the pitch, and the Sky commentators were like, "Oh yeah, they've got the best." The sort of the best. They wouldn't take any risk with these players. Are the best things. When you saw him drop, he looked out. And there is no way he should not have gone off for HIA. They took him off in the second half, and you're like, mate, this is way too late. Getting him off. You've let him play on for about another 40 odd minutes before you've taken him off, and that is disgusting. Sanders should have been gone way before then. In this Ranfurly Shield game, I didn't see it, to be honest. I listened to it on the radio, but it sounds like Josh Ioane, again, was knocked out. Went off, unsteady during half-time, got HIA, came back on. I really don't think Josh should have been coming back on from what I heard on the radio. Now, I didn't see it, to be honest, but look, if we're going to take head knocks seriously, players have got to be removed and looked after. They will always want to come back on. They will always think they can play. And it's not until after the game they think, perhaps I wasn't fully aware of what was going on, that they actually realise they shouldn't have been playing. So that's my rant for today. Get players who take head knocks, get them out, keep them off. It's not worth it. Rant over. Canterbury versus Wellington. Something that you've said to me last week, Stephen, was when you're looking through the Canterbury list was, I don't recognise all these names, and especially the bench. And you're like, yeah, look, this isn't the Canterbury team of the past decade, is it? This is they've started to run out of depth.
Yeah. Let's make this clear. They've had they have been the benchmark, but I suppose it's like any great franchise or great team, Paul. How long does it last? And eventually it's gonna bite. Sometimes not to mention a lot of the other unions are doing their level best to keep their players. We know what. There's no need for players to lead leave Tasman anymore if you play for the Crusaders, and no doubt around some of the other unions, but the unions are doing really, really well to keep their players. So yeah, it is starting to bite, and they're a very young group, this Canterbury side at the minute. I don't know what their average age is, but I suppose Luke Romano will probably bring the average age back to a more manageable sum, shall we say? But they are pretty young.
Yeah, so it's and we kind of saw that. We saw that with some questionable decision making. They're leading going into half time, and then they actually decide with about 2 minutes left on the clock that they're just going to try and do one out and just kill time. They end up turning over the ball and giving up a try, and you're like, wow, that's not the kind of rugby you expect out of Canterbury. Sure, if you're one score up at the end of a game, you might try and do that, but at half time, really just kick it down the other end, make them go 80 meters. Some I say questionable decision making there, and perhaps a lack of faith in their style of play. I think we saw there.
Interestingly enough, Paul, when Wellington have really, really clicked, Duplessis Karifi has always been on fire. But I don't know if you saw this game, but I just felt he was a little bit quiet in this one.
I didn't see this one. Maybe. Yeah, right. I didn't sort of notice him that much in this one. But and whilst we say that Canterbury might have a few names missing, Tom Christie, Tom Sanders, and then Princep as your Lucy's. It's not that's not an area that they're low in. So wouldn't be surprised if he came up against a very good. We got Mitch Dunshea and Luke Romano. He's come up against a very good back five there in that pack. So wouldn't be surprised if that's if he had a tough day at the office in that one.
Well, Paul, I was going to say, even though they've got that in the starting, you kind of look at their bench. Their bench is Mello, Williams, Newell, Derry. Who?
Billy Harmon.
Yeah. Well, you got Billy Harmon and NRE. Cameron. Actually, to be fair, they've got a little bit of experience there, but they no longer present that real top end experience they used to have when they had a dependable Mac Todd guys of that ilk running around.
Yeah, they've still got decent decent loosies in there, but it's in the backs particularly where you look at it and go, there's a bunch of players there that I'm not too sure. Burke starting ahead of Brett Cameron was an interesting one, but in the end it worked for them. They aren't the dominating pace setters that we've seen in the past. Golden Point. Then it was quite fun having the referee, the two captains discussing how Golden Point was going to work. The referee getting assistance from the off-field umpire, who obviously had the rule book with him, and that was the right thing to do, folks. Is to make sure you've got all those things right when it is something that is brand new. When I put my Sam Ward post-match interview out later, I asked him about would they be training for Golden Point now, and he says, well, yep, you have to. But clearly, nobody has been training for Golden Point, but that's going to be on the it's going to be added to the training list for this week after that game. I mean, Wellington did everything right. They got themselves. They kicked off. Obviously, the drop, got themselves in front for the drop goal, and then missed it. And then threw an interception try to lose it. But as Jordan says, Canterbury didn't win. Well, he lost. Yep, they did, because they had it all there in their hands to win, and they missed the drop goal at the end of the day. But I must admit, I didn't realise that Golden Point was going to apply to this. I guess I should have done, because they said that all of the rules that they'd done for Super Rugby would apply to here. But I thought that was just rolling away, and the other things I didn't. The Golden Point didn't sort of twig with me.
Well, I was like yourself. I was driving home from Whangarei, but I did catch up with the highlights of the game today. Now, I was surprised as well when they said 5 minutes. I thought, well, is this going to be 2.5 minutes each way, or does one team play because it seems really strange. One team plays for 5 minutes with, like, for example, if you've got the wind behind you, that's pretty advantageous, wouldn't you say, Paul?
Yeah. Well, actually, this one, no, because Australia is 5 minutes each way. New Zealand is just 10 minutes in one direction. So if you choose the wind, you get the wind. Now, what was interesting was that one of the players asked the ref, he says, well, how long do we play for? And he's like, well, it's a golden point. You play until you score. At least... which sounded like this one could go on for a long time. Luckily, they say nobody knew exactly what the rules were. They were having to quickly figure it out on the spot because they kind of had an idea. But yes, so so I say the referee got it wrong initially, but got told. And obviously we didn't have that problem because we had an interception try pretty quickly. So yeah, so it was kind of funny.
Paul, I did actually send out sent out a tweet to Elliot Smith from NZME, who mentioned the game, maybe the Steve Walsh curse. That's a long story. We could be here all night. But I did basically say, how does a team that has pretty much dominated for pretty much most of the extra time, I don't know, for almost like 4 minutes or 4 minutes and 50 seconds, only for the last 10 seconds to throw it all away, and that's pretty much what they did. And as for the drop kick, I have seen that. I'm absolutely staggered because Jackson Garden-Bishop, we all know he's the sort of player that can put a cross kick on a dime on most occasions. That drop kick was very kickable. Maybe he had too much time.
Yeah, Simon said he doesn't like the idea of golden point. Look, yeah, I'm happy with draws. I quite like. I think draws are fine, but it does add a bit more razzmatazz to it, and intrigue. I say I'm happy with draws, but I'm not going to be one of those that gets particularly upset the fact that golden point's in there. It is what it is. Everyone knows the rules beforehand, or everyone should know the rules beforehand, and they know. Look, it's not like they're changing rules on the fly. So hey, I'm not that fussed about it either way. So we followed that up, and then today we had Harbour versus Tasman, which I was at. I've not put the post-match interviews out yet, but I will do hopefully before I go to bed tonight. This one, 16-10 at half-time, with Harbour were up, but it definitely felt like that they were playing with the wind at their back in this one. And I did think that, and I was thinking, well, okay, is this wind worth 4 points, or is this wind worth more than that? I thought it was worth more than that. And at halftime, I was thinking, oops, Harbour are in some problems here. They've not got the points that they needed to. But that wasn't to be. I mean, they were kicking and then applying pressure at the breakdown. My pre-season interview with Sam Ward, you'll have heard him talking about the fact that they were going to concentrate on the technical side of tackling and rucking. And that was going to be a big point for them. It hasn't worked until this week, but this week, all that work they've been putting in over the past 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever they had for pre-season, has clicked at last. And they really did do that today, and basically starved Tasman of ball. If you don't have the ball, you can't score points at the end of the day. And there's a number of ways of doing that. It's not just about playing out your own 22. You can do it. There are other ways of doing it, which is what we saw today. One thing we did also see there was a very rare occurrence. We saw a tight head prop get yellow carded for continuous offsides, and then his replacement then got sin-binned for repeat scrum infringements. Now, I thought Harbour were doing the wrong thing there, and I talked about it with actually their one of their interns who was marking the game live. Look, they spent something like 5 minutes scrummaging to get that second yellow card. You're like, kick the three, take advantage of being one man up, go back down and score again. But no, what do? They scrum, get the other guy off, then kick the three, then give up an intercept try, go down, have an uncontested scrum, which totally they weren't. And as Sam Ward admitted, they've never trained for uncontested scrums, so they didn't know what to do. The referee didn't referee it properly either, because he allowed the winger and the scrum half, who were playing flanker and 8, to just hold on, and they weren't bound. They didn't have their shoulders. You got to have shoulder contact, even in an uncontested scrum, which meant they broke away very quickly and covered things off. So, again, another situation where players aren't ready for it, don't take full advantage of it, and actually, even though they won this game 40-24, they lost the 15 minutes when they were 1 or 2 men up, 3-7. So you've got to say, but they really controlled Tasman. Tasman's 2 tries both came from intercepts. Right? They didn't actually. They clearly aimed at figured out how Tasman attacked and shut them down, and that is impressive, because no one else has managed to do that to Tasman. So my early season prediction that Harbour were going down has taken a bit of a rethink today of the drive back. Soon.
You're very good, Paul. Listen, I thought at the 51st minute, if ever a score flattered a team that was coming second, it was Tasman at that point in time, because they'd obviously scored that try. Obviously, Mark Talia still knew North Harbour's backline moves from when he played for them last year. Hence, he picked off the intercept. And Finlay Christie, the great opportunist, you could see that coming a mile away. And unfortunately for Harbour, that was from a line-out win against the feed. So it went behind, and Talai ran back, and you could see Fraser Christie just basically, his eyes, they looked like dinner plates. So you could see that intercept coming a mile away, and they scored, and they're back at 19-17. And you're thinking to yourself, how does this happen? But in reality, Tasman, probably Harbour should have been ahead by a lot more. And yeah, I agree, especially when Tasman were down to 13. I thought that was, even with an uncontested scrum, I still think that was a great attacking opportunity. And you notice they hadn't trained for it, because when Tasman were down a player, they actually used a narrow channel, which is insane. It's easy to defend, instead of going that little bit wider, because there's a heck of a little bit more work for whoever's anchored onto that scrum. I even think Fletcher Christie went into number 8. He wasn't even bound properly. Just crazy, Paul.
But also, you've got the winger and the 9 bound. There's nobody guarding the blind side. Just suddenly pick and go down the blind side, and throw a winger down there as well was the other option. So a number of options there that, but yeah, as you say, they didn't know what to do there. When they got back into a situation of 15-on-15 where they didn't know what to do, they dominated the game again. And won it. So really good there. Southland Waikato. So I was kind of watching this on my computer whilst watching the game live. Basically they were playing in a swimming pool. At the end of the day, it was drenched.
Yeah, well, I think Southland ordered in these conditions on about Wednesday for Sunday, and it was very torrential, and it kept them in the game. But once again, just a few little opportunities, and to me, a man of the match performance from Fletcher Smith. Just with his kicking game, he knew exactly what to do. Listen, once they had the win behind them in the second half, he said, "Man, we are going to play all this game down in the red zone and force Southland to basically come out of their own half, and they'll make mistakes." And that's what it came down to at the end of the day in the second half. Waikato were making a lot of mistakes. Credit to Southland, they're a plucky side, but I think that was the right result at the end of the day, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, after getting one up over Hawke's Bay in similar conditions in round 1. The luck didn't run this time. A missed drop goal in 80 minutes could have won it for Southland. So we had a couple of drop goals in this one, which was nice to see. In the end, that missed drop goal, a missed penalty, were what basically let Southland down. But if you're doing that, if you're kicking into the wind, it's always difficult in those situations. So congratulations to Waikato on the 1-point win there. The Ranfurly Shield. So I listened to this one on the radio, and as Simon says, musical Ranfurly Shield at the moment. Quite right. With this one, and look, at half time, it seemed again. I think this one was trying to remember what this half time score was. But Hawke's Bay just pulled away and didn't have any. So I don't think they basically had none of the play in that first half, but didn't allow Otago to score. And so it was 6-7 at half time. Come the second half, and they just blitzed them in the end with 3 more tries to not only win but take the try bonus point as well. They took the shield, the win, the try bonus point, absolutely everything there for Hawke's Bay. Look, having players like Walker Laurie on your bench has bringing someone like that off the bench to bash into a tight opposition. Wow, that's a good place to be in. And you got to say that, congratulations to Hawke's Bay, a team that now have only lost 1 game, and yet one that I've thought weren't clicking, which is just dumb of me. I guess that lost to Southland, and then they beat Counties, beat Canterbury, beaten Otago, taking the shield. They're on a roll, you got to say actually that it was just wet weather in that first one, and since then they've been playing well actually.
Oh, very much so. I mean, so in the first half they just weren't quite there, and the problem that they were having, they just had no ball, and when they did have ball, they could only hold on to it for about 20 seconds, no longer than 20 seconds. So they're only, which is really unusual of Hawke's Bay, because as we know, they're quite a patient team. They'll use their forwards, but one of the players who was playing outstandingly well in that first half was Slade McDowell. He was the open side flanker. He was having a fantastic game, getting a lot of turnovers, and Otago were just winning the breakdown until finally Hawke's Bay actually put something together just before halftime. A couple of breaks, they finally got in behind Otago, and Lolangi Visania finishes off a try on that right corner, which has converted McClutchy, and Otago were probably left to scratch their heads after having all the ball, most of the field position. I think they went over, Jonah Nariki went over the line. Unfortunately, he had a man outside, and I think he ignored him, and it would probably be better if he'd actually passed. He was held up over the line. So there was some good defence from Hawke's Bay in that first period. It was, generally across the board, it was pretty even at scrum time. It was even in the set piece contact, but I thought Otago had the better of the breakdown. But going into halftime, it must have been concerning for them that they hadn't scored a try.
Yeah, true. And congrats to Hawke's Bay. I say they have clicked. Having all those boys who are part of the same team coming out of the school down there, I've gone blank as which one it is, clearly helps. Now you've got to say, talking here about Shield hangover. Well, yes, Hawke's Bay are lucky because to next week they don't have to defend the Shield. They're playing away, so they get to play away at Harbour next weekend before they get to defend their Shield against Northland, where I believe you're going to be, sir. I think you're heading down, aren't you, for that?
Yes. I'm flying down the week of the game, and I will be at McLean Park on the Friday night. So looking forward to it. But we've still got another round of action to go before then, Paul. But I also just want to mention for that Hawke's Bay, Ash Dixon played 100 games as well. I think they're probably more likely to celebrate it. Interesting enough, I think they're away next weekend against Harbour, which will be a tough match, and either one of us will no doubt be at Harbour Stadium next week, depending on the time zone. Also they'll probably celebrate his 100th game. They always do these things at home, so I guess we will get to see that down at McLean Park. So I'll have to organise my accreditation to make sure I get to the after-match function, and hopefully I can film something special as we did last night at Sevenoff Stadium, Paul. Yeah,
absolutely. And don't forget, we're going to be playing out with that at the end of the show. So, folks, don't forget to stick around to the end of the show for that celebrationary hacker there. So, yes, you're going to be there. So next weekend, folks, in the Mitre 10 Cup, I will be at Waikato on Saturday for the 7 p.m. game. Stephen, well, you've got the choice of Harbour at 2 p.m. on Saturday, and then also you've got Northland at 1:15 on Sunday. So we'll see which ones you decide to what you're up for next weekend. But don't forget, folks, like the New Zealand Sport Radio Facebook page to get all those post-match interviews. So if you're listening on the podcast or on YouTube or on Twitter, we just put the post-match interviews on Facebook. We don't put them in all those other locations. So do please like that. Also, for supporters of so you can become a supporter of New Zealand Sports Radio. Just go to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio, and there you get access to special videos that I do exclusively for supporters. Last week I looked at what's going on with New Zealand rugby, and next week I'll be putting one out looking at what's New Zealand rugby's future view of Super Rugby. How do they see it going forward? So I think we've had some really interesting stuff that's been hinted at but not really explained in the press. So you can become a supporter of Driving More for as little as $1 a month, and folks, it really does mean the world to me. My favorite people in the world are obviously those contributors like Stephen, who come on here and provide all this content for you guys for free. I don't pay them. I'd love to. So my favorite people in the world, my second favorite people in the world are my supporters on patreon.com/driving more, /NZ Sport Radio. So thanks for all of that.
Paul, I just want to say, it's a lot of fun doing that. So I should say to the people who are watching, we get some great feedback when we're around the trips. I know we've been covering a lot of the rugby that doesn't always get a lot of love, or the things that happen behind the scenes. We see a lot of stuff on other channels that people will see all the time, and it gets shared. But like for example, yesterday I interviewed two girls in the Farah Palmer Cup, which we're about to get to shortly, that were making their debut, and one of the young girls there, Georgia Bryars, that I spoke to, she was just jumping out of her skin to play for Northland. So it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun doing this.
We do have a lot of fun doing it, and folks, we're also looking at trying to do it for the Auckland Club cricket competition as well. So look, it's not just rugby we do this for. We try and do it for other sports as well. So look out for that coming up. So yes, Farah Palmer Cup then. Auckland versus Bay of Plenty was the first game. I've not really watched many of these, but I've watched a bit of Farah Palmer Cup this year, and I've looked at the scores and looked how the games went. This was 12-0 to Auckland, and whilst it looked at 22-19, it looks like it was a close game, but with time up, it was 22-12. Okay, so a 10-point lead, 2-score lead. They couldn't lose it, but a score after the 80 minutes got the losing bonus point for Bay of Plenty. So, yeah, Auckland really dominated this one, and now top the North Conference, and odds-on favourites to be going through to the final series as one of those top two. Northland beat North Harbour, unsurprisingly, 65-5. Stephen, you were there. Harbour obviously been having a tough season this year. They won their what I would call their cup final against Tasman. Struggling against all the others. Yeah, I think it was pretty much an expected result there.
Yeah, it to be honest, was a celebration. I caught up with Tyler Nathan Wong, and listen, after 3 games where they've had to really battle 3 tough games, of course, Waikato, Auckland, and then getting the win over counties Manawatu. I think this was just a game of expression where they were able to throw the ball around, Paul, show what they can do. Credit to the North Harbour team. They were down 43-0 at half time, and this could have really blown out. And it took Northland another 20 odd minutes to actually score there. I think they scored 11 tries in total, their eighth try. So, Harbour actually hung in there, and they scored. I think they were the second to last scorers. They're very impressive number 8, which just escapes my mind at the moment, Paul, as I look at my piece of paper. Varia, who scored. Look, she was probably their best player and a well-deserved score to the North Harbour number 8. But yeah, really impressive. I mean to say, Portia Woodman in the midfield. My God. She's got an ability to take an outside. She's got an ability to take an outside gap, and Tyler Nathan Wong probably played her best game for Northland. Very dangerous at halfback, and great to see a couple of young girls. Georgia Bryars, who I interviewed, is a young girl who she starred at the Ignite Sevens, I think it was last year, at Waitakere Stadium, the Red Bull Ignite Sevens. She was one of the star turns in that particular tournament. And also Narissa Fale made her debut for Northland, former counties player who's moved back up north. So she was, even though Narissa's been around the game for a while, she was super delighted to be playing for this Northland side. They got a good deal going on at the minute, Paul.
Yeah, they might only be a 2-year-old system, but they've been providing players to other provinces for a number of years, and they've got a few back now, which has helped to strengthen them this time. We then had a cracking game, Waikato versus Counties. So unfortunately didn't see this, but half-time 15-14 in this one, so close there, and finished up 34-28. Now, Counties, one of the team, I think probably our pre-season favourite from the North Division, now have lost back-to-back games against Northland and Waikato. Shows you how competitive the top teams are in this competition. I know we're going to see a lot of we see a lot of blowouts, but there is some real competition amongst those other groups. With Waikato now sat second in the table, I think we're probably going to see Auckland and Waikato as the top two. Waikato have got Harbour up next, so you've got to say that's probably going to be a win for them. And then they finished with Auckland, so that last game is going to be interesting. You've got Northland, you've got Bay of Plenty, and also Counties all on 2 wins. If one of those 3 teams can win both their games, they've got a chance of going through. But at the moment, it looks like it's going to probably be Auckland and Waikato. Quite what order it's going to be in will come down probably to that final game between the two of them. That finished off 34-28. Sorry, I don't know. I said the actual score there, but still within the score, Counties obviously getting the losing bonus point. But cracking. That sounds like it was a cracking game there. Heading south, then Canterbury beat Wellington 54-12 in this one. Canterbury confirmed themselves as number 1 seeds down in the Southern Division. Unsurprising, really. They've won all their games. We expect them to win their final game as well. Look, Canterbury have secured themselves a home semi-final. Probably will secure themselves a home final as well if they get that far. So, unsurprising there. Now, what is surprising is how the women are treated. So, Alice Soper on Twitter, she's been one of the most vocal women players about the treatment of the women's game by New Zealand Rugby / provinces, whoever's got the thing. The Wellington girls got back to their hotel after the game and were told there's no dinner for them, and that they had to pay for their own dinners. Now that's just nuts, folks. Here they are traveling around the country for their province, playing what is the top level of women's club rugby in the world, alongside probably the French and the English leagues, and they're not even getting dinner after a game, which is nuts. So come on, provinces, step up. We're not asking you to be paying them $1 million a year. We're just saying that they should be treated as proper athletes, i.e., you get your T&E, you get your travel and your food paid for. You get your nutrition paid for when you're training as well. Your training events, you should have access to masseurs and things to help you recover. This is just what top-level sports should include. I think it's disgraceful that the Wellington women had to pay for their own dinners after the game.
Well, Paul, I was about to say, and this is the union that hosts them work Canterbury, and this is the top team in New Zealand. So I think it's really a black mark against the Canterbury Rugby Union, in my opinion, unless they want to say otherwise, because it's very poor form in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know whose responsibility it is, whether it's Canterbury as the hosts, whether it's Wellington as their as the province they play for, or whether it's New Zealand Rugby who run the whole thing. I don't know where the blame lies, but it's wrong. So congratulations, Wellington there. Wellington, hope you had a nice trip home. But when they went down to play Tasman, they had to take the ferry as well. Now, I don't know if that's quicker than flying or not, but to me, that seemed like, again, leaving a game quite often. So the men will pretty much always stay over after a game unless they can get home pretty quickly. When Wellington played Tasman, they had to get on a coach and a ferry to get home as well. So poor form, definitely. As Simon Hughes says, even amateur rugby clubs provide food for the opposition team after a game. Yeah, exactly. Tasman versus Hawke's Bay. No, that can't be right, because Tasman and Hawke's Bay are in different ones. No, right. That's right. Yeah, Tasman versus Hawke's Bay. Sorry, I was in Taranaki there. Tasman versus Hawke's Bay, 562. Again, we know that Tasman is one of the younger, more development sides. Hawke's Bay are one of the ones that are still in with a shout of getting that second place in the Southern Conference. So unsurprising, that result 562. Then Otago versus Manawatu. Now this finished. This was 0-7 at half time, and it finished 14-28. But that makes this one actually look like it was more comfortable than it was. This was 14-21 going into the dying seconds of the game. So Otago could have drawn it. Obviously, then we would have ended up in golden point, I guess, and they could have gone on to win it. But no, Manawatu managed to get themselves a try once time was up and after the hooter. And so that, whilst it looks like a 2-score win, that really was right down to the wire between Otago and Manawatu there in that one. And having a quick look at the Farah Palmer Cup tables, I mean, we've talked about what's going to happen in the north. Auckland and Waikato probably there. Counties, Bay of Plenty and Northland, an outside chance of making it. Down in the south, Canterbury on 20 points with 4 wins will top the group. But then you've got Manawatu on 15, Wellington on 12, Otago on 10, all with 1 game to go. So tight between those. Otago probably got too much to do, but Wellington and Manawatu probably fighting it out for that second place. Manawatu have got Hawke's Bay. They should get the win. That should see them home. So we should see Canterbury versus Manawatu, Wellington just missing out, is my expectation. But who knows, hey?
Paul, I was just thinking it would be a good contest between North Harbour Hibiscus and Tasman Women, because they're whilst there's only a point splitting them, their points difference is very similar. Just I suppose with COVID, just the way the cards have laid. G'day Manasi Lelinoa in the chat room there, Manasi. I hope you're well, mate. Former Bombay halfback, played a little bit down in Thames as well, so great to have Manasi on board. And I think there's an argument to say this north-south thing is a good idea as the women get to test themselves, and we've seen sort of Northland step up from the championship and the championship side and really perform well at this level. There's also a good argument to say that, look, your teams like Taranaki, North Harbour, Hawke's Bay, Tasman aren't really ready for it and need a bit more time to develop in a championship situation. So I understand both points of view, that if you are that 8th team that has to drop down, you're probably going to dominate the championship. So it's not kind of good for you. But there's also a bunch of teams that aren't perhaps really ready for it yet, to be honest. And it'll be interesting to see how they do structure things post-COVID. Because remember, folks, next year we get to host, as in New Zealand, the Women's Rugby World Cup. So it's going to be interesting. We need to have some sort of club competition, some sort of top flight competition early next year in the women's game to give the Black Ferns conditioning for the Women's Rugby World Cup. We've yet to hear what that's going to be. I know there were plans in place. COVID have clearly caused that to be thrown out the window. Whether they do a sort of Auckland, Central, Wellington, South Island, 4 teams that do a round robin or something, but they need to do something
to give the girls some proper action and some training. That club rugby is not going to cut it with the Rugby World Cup. You're shaking your head there a bit, Stephen.
No, not at all. I just think it's got so much potential. I don't want to see the New Zealand Rugby Union drop the ball. We're seeing some talented young athletes actually coming through, and some of these unions just need a little bit more support. I'm just sort of wondering if maybe there should be some sort of loan system to help some of the lesser teams. I can see some of the teams down at North Harbour running around yesterday probably struggle with a little bit of depth, and we all know about their financial history in the background. So maybe they aren't putting as much into that particular side. But these are extraordinary circumstances. It is a COVID year, so we'll just have to see how this plays out moving forward. But come on, New Zealand Rugby. We've actually got a Rugby World Cup here next year. Let's try and at least lift the standard and support all our ladies out there.
Yeah, as Simon says, Super Rugby for women. Yeah, something along those sort of lines. Essentially, sort of like you have like one based in Auckland, one based in Waikato, in Hamilton, one based in Wellington, and one based in Canterbury. Perhaps you don't have enough to also have a fifth one, but hey, four would be a good start anyway. So something needs to be put in place in early 2021 for that. Most certainly. I had something else on my mind that I was going to say, but I've gone blank. Oh dear. There we go. Typical. Thank you everybody. Cracking round of Mitre 10 Cup and Farah Palmer Cup this weekend, and we will now see you out with that hacker that Stephen videoed for us. Just quick technical zooming round to make it happen.